What's up, all you stars and studs? I'm former WWE Diva and current First Lady of Ring of Honor, Maria Kanellis, and you are listening to another wrestling podcast.
You'll never guess who I ran into in Hartford at Walmart this week.
Who's that?
Well, I was at the self-checkout, and apparently someone else shares my zest for covers and cases for technology, and it was none other than Emma. She must have been there. I haven't really heard what happened, but there must be a lot of fans of hers are like police officers, or like the private, the police officers, firefighters. They were all around her, talking to her, and they were giving her like bracelets and stuff. It was weird, but it was cool to see her.
With talk like that, it could get you fired and rehired within the same day.
Yeah, that's very impressive. I think that's probably a first in the world of sports entertainment at all, that someone is fired and rehired on the same day. So, congrats, Emma.
Emma hired, Emma fired.
It's time for another wrestling podcast with your hosts, Steve Credo and Jonathan Benjamin.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to episode 3. This is another wrestling podcast. We have a lot to go over today. We have part 2, the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame.
I sit here, and as we do these shows, I try to think, how can we make these shows better for our listeners? And I think we've got it this week. We've got, a ton more interviews on tap. We've got, if you're a fan of old school, we have the likes of Jim the Animal Neidhart, Bushwhacker Luke, Tito Santana. If you're a fan of, newer wrestlers and divas, we have Shelly Martinez, WWE's Ariel. We also have Matt Striker, somewhat recently released Matt Striker, and I think the creme de la creme. For our French listeners out there, I think that's French, I don't know. We have John Cena Sr., none other than the World Heavyweight WWE Champion's father. So, I'm pretty sure that this is, I say this about every show, but I think this is our best show so far.
It is. It could possibly be the best show so far. It was a great weekend, Jonathan. Once again, I'm sorry that you missed it.
No.
But it's great to reach out to a lot of these superstars, these talented wrestlers, guys and gals of all generations out there. From the past and present, like you said, everybody was great to talk to. It was a great weekend, and I can't stress enough that if you guys are in the Warwick, Rhode Island area next year, they're going to do it again for FanFest 5, so be sure you head on out to Rhode Island, and special thanks to Joseph Bruin for welcoming us with open arms and being allowed to get all these great interviews that weekend. So,
yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. And you know what? Before we get too far into this episode this week, if you're a new listener and you want to catch our other shows, we are on iTunes. You can subscribe to us on iTunes. And if you want to keep up to date with everything Another Wrestling Podcast, then you can like us on Facebook, www.facebook.com/Another Wrestling Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at A Wrestling Pod. You can follow either one of us also on Twitter at Credo and at Limousine Riding.
There you go. Yeah, man, we're all over the social media universe. And also, too, just newly added, we are on Stitcher. So if you search for Another Wrestling Podcast, if you have that on your iPhone or your Android or whatnot, download it. You can listen to us on there. And I'll even stretch it even further that if you go to podbean.com with you search Another Wrestling Podcast, on your phone, you can actually make us an app on your phone. So that all you have to do is click to it and you'll get all of our shows. So many ways to reach us, so many ways to listen to us, Jonathan. We can't stress it enough. Just Google Another Wrestling Podcast or check us out at marksforlife.net. But without further ado, Jonathan, do you know who our first guest is of the evening?
I should, but I'm gonna be just as surprised as you fans. So let me hear it, Credo.
Well, none other than Shelly Martinez. There you go. No sound effects needed. That was straight from the show. Jonathan, she was a great person to talk to. I basically started off with asking her, if you could sum up your entire wrestling career thus far in one word, what would it be?
Gnarly.
Gnarly. I mean, hey, I figured out, people need to sum up their wrestling career in one word. What would it be?
That's a great question, and I'm not too surprised by her answer, which is gnarly. She is pretty outspoken and really kind of on the edge of everything that is kind of, I want to say, like hip that's going on in the world right now. So yeah, gnarly definitely is a pretty cool word. I actually followed her early career when she was in Ohio Valley Wrestling, and she was always pretty cool whenever she was there. So
yeah, she'll talk to us a little bit about that, a little funny story about OVW. But I also I asked her that she's one of the most outspoken wrestlers when it comes to causes. I mean, she's a big spokesperson for medical marijuana and animal rights and whatnot. But I asked her, what else is she passionate about?
My love for God. That's what my whole mission is. Before I went to WWE and I was an independent wrestler, it was really put on my heart that I was to use getting that blessing, because I knew it was going to come. It was in my gut, to glorify God and to just spread the love. Like, no matter what people believe in, it's all about love. And I really feel that that's my purpose in the wrestling business. So that's why being back in the indies and doing stuff like this, I always find myself in these interesting conversations, specifically with people in the business. And I think that's where my true mission is to bring that light to people within the business.
Now, I feel like such a jackass because as soon as she said her love for God, I literally almost laughed, and I wasn't laughing about that. I wasn't expecting it. It was like a thing I didn't expect, and I don't know, I did kind of like a smile, like, oh, okay. Oh, I felt like such an idiot because I was just almost on borderline about to laugh at her face about God, and that was like, I didn't know what to do. Like, I wasn't trying to laugh about that. It was just, I was caught off guard with the answer. I thought she would have said something else. I wasn't expecting God.
no, absolutely. I was going with like black mascara. I don't know,
I know.
but that's pretty. This is why you have to listen to this show, because I guarantee you, if you listen to 100 Shelly Martinez podcasts, the only way that you're going to hear that is if you listen to another Shelly Martinez podcast.
That's it, man. That's the thing. I mean, how can you go from medical marijuana and animal rights to Jesus Christ Superstar? I mean, hey, it was just a question. You never know. You never know what these athletes and superstars are really into, and it's interesting to find out. But once again, Shelly, I'm sorry if I almost laughed in your face. I didn't mean it, but I had to get it out there. It was just one of those things in the moment that I kind of found funny, but not funny of the subject. It was, it was what it was. But anyway, you did bring up OVW, and I did ask her if she could give us a funny story about her time in OVW that she could tell her fans about, that we possibly don't even know about. So here we go.
Oh man, where do I start?
Not putting you on the spot or anything. I know. Is there anything maybe funny?
Well, OVW was like my college years. When people say, "Oh, back in college," that's OVW for me. There's just so many different stories. I don't know where to even begin. Okay, I used to be pretty rough around the edges back in the day. Punk rock, whatever. And me and another wrestler I used to manage, Idol Stevens, we were going to a show at this church, St. Therese. And this car, to cut him off, he said something, they stopped. So I automatically had his back. And all of a sudden, these three dudes come out of the car and this one very ghetto girl. And we're about to throw it down. And what was interesting is it got loud, so the people that were putting the ring up saw, and they came outside. And I remember specifically Punk was one of them, and they had our backs, and it was almost like we were a little gang, and they were like, "Hey, you don't mess with them," So, and I remember Punk picked me up and put me inside Idol's car and was like, "Stay there," because he knew I was just too sassy. So there's a fun story.
One of the times that I had watched Shelly Martinez in OVW, she mentioned the name Idol Stevens. Now, for those of you who are listening, avid wrestling fans, you know that Idol Stevens is none other than WWE's Damian Sandow. So when Idol Stevens down in OVW was wrestling, he had two female managers. He had Shelly Martinez and he had Beth Phoenix. And at this time, keep this in mind when you're picturing Damian Sandow today, he was known as the Maharaja of the Menage a Trois. So he was much better off then than he is now. But I always like to hear stories about OVW. It was close to where I used to live in Indiana, and I got to see several of the shows. So I'm very excited to hear Shelly. I wish they would do like an OVW DVD. You get little matches every now and then whenever they show like Batista or Orton, but you never really get to see some of the great stuff that came from there.
We were only given a certain amount of time with these superstars at the show because, other things are going on. But when we have them on the show, I would love to delve deeper into more of these questions about some of their time in the past. Because it is interesting, like you said, for some of the marks out there listening, they might not have known who Idol Stevens was. So it's good that you pointed out there, because it's like we need that NBC the more you know music now.
Absolutely.
Now we know more. But one thing I didn't know about her is that she had does she have like a vampire gimmick going on right now? She had vampire teeth in when I was interviewing her. She was all decked out in vampire stuff.
When she first came into WWECW, the reboot of ECW, she was placed with Kevin Thorne, the former Mordecai and other terrible gimmicks. But he was a vampire. She was somewhat of a tarot card reader, but she also did kind of the vampire gimmick. So I'm assuming that that's probably more of what they asked for on the independents than like Salinas or any of the other things that she did whenever she was in TNA or other things. So that's probably where the teeth were from.
Is there anything you don't know, Jonathan?
I thought I knew everything, but I was mistaken. So I guess there's that.
Well, another thing I didn't know about Shelly Martinez is that, she tried out for the next Elvira show. So I asked her when she was on the search for the next Elvira, did her and Elvira talk wrestling?
I wish we did. My interaction with her was very minimal, but it's interesting you bring it up because a couple of girls on that show I'm still friends with to this day, and it's really cool. It's kind of like what wrestling has kind of brought me, that show in a little way brought me the same kind of thing. And I love my Elvira sisters, and I love Elvira, because I know that I did tell her I'll see you in hell when I got eliminated, but the reason why I did that is I felt I was going to get eliminated, so I thought I had to go out with a bang, because they told us, just say scream, because it's CGI, they're going to burn us, and I thought I can't just go out like that, so that's when I just said, I'll see you in hell, Elvira, and I'll never forget, she got kind of spooked by me, and she went, and like no one came to get me to escort me off, and they told me my acting sucks, so I was like, take that, bitches.
Thanks again to Shelly Martinez for joining us. She's a great personality, great person to speak with, always happy, always very cheerful. So it's always great when you meet somebody in the business that's always like her. But I did next talk to one of the legendary Hart Foundation members, Jim the Anvil Neidhart. He didn't say as much as I thought he would say, for reasons unknown. But, I was able to ask him a few questions. One question, just right off the bat for a legend, who would he wrestle if he had the chance?
I would have loved to have had a shot to wrestle Vince McMahon like Brett had in a couple of WrestleManias ago. That was pretty good.
And who would have thought? If you had to wrestle anybody, JB, would you wrestle McMahon too?
Coming from Jim the Anvil, I was expecting some other answer, but McMahon is always a good person to lock up with. I think that everybody wants a piece of McMahon because he's been so successful. So I think that that's probably the best one to go with.
Yeah, and coming off the Legends House on the WWE Network, I asked him if the opportunity was there, would he be in a Legends House for the next season?
Sure, love to.
Short and sweet, Jim. Short and sweet. But anyways, I'm a big fan of his daughter, Natalia. I asked him about how he feels with her and where she is wrestling today, and how he feels as a dad watching her in the business that he grew up in.
She's really good at it, you know. I couldn't be happier for her. It's all good.
So, Jonathan, I know it was short and sweet with Jim the Animal Neidhart. Like I said, I don't know. But, I mean, it was still a great pleasure to get some questions from him. But moving right along, do you know who our next guest is, Jonathan?
Well, I was watching a recent episode of, well, I guess it's not recent, but I was watching an episode of Family Matters. Now, we're all familiar with this show. Steve Urkel and Carl Winslow. Did you know, and this is a perfect segue, that's what we call it in the business, that the Bushwhackers went against the Psycho Twins, which happened to be Carl Winslow and Steve Urkel on the specific episode that I was talking about. So if you didn't know, now you know once again. But I'm assuming, since I just told you that pointless story, that we're going to be talking to Bushwhacker Luke.
Well, you got it. That's absolutely right, Jonathan. Bushwhacker Luke, man, he's still crazy Bushwhacker Luke now and forever, I'm saying. I mean, when I met him, he was a great guy. I asked him a funny question, which you presented to me, and I figured I had to bring this to the show and ask him. So I asked him, which tag team name is better, the Kiwis, the Sheepherders, or the Bushwhackers?
Well, mate, the Bushwhackers made the most money. We became celebrities. But as the Sheepherders, I enjoyed being a sheepherder. Yeah, kicking some ass, taking names, and controlling the crowd.
Well, there you have it. He's, I think, a Bushwhacker is a fan of a sheepherder. Well, I mean, It's kind of the, you know.
Yeah, I just want to tell you that I want to find out if I can get Bushwhacker Luke to just do books on tape, because I would love to listen to like him talk for hours and hours and hours. He's got the greatest voice ever.
Yes. A great guy. I mean, I also asked him, you know, he enjoyed a great deal of success in the tag team ranks, and I asked him if he ever wished he had a singles career, and this is what he said.
No, I enjoyed it. You know, we were the longest, I think. I don't think there's any other teams been around together as long as us, the Funks or the Briscoes, but we were together for 34 years, 1968 to 2002.
Wow, I didn't know that. I didn't realize they were that long together. I mean, as a little mark growing up, I just knew them as the Bushwhackers, but until like Google came around, then I could, you know, really delve deep into the history of these guys. But that's interesting, you know. Over 34 years they said together as a tag team.
That is longer than Emma spent in jail. That's remarkable.
There you go. I don't even know where to go with that. But well, speaking of, he is a lone whacker right now. I guess is that politically correct? A lone whacker?
Hold on, I'm getting our fact checker in on this. Yes, he is a lone whacker right now.
Well, the biggest question of all is, where is Butch?
Butch is back home in New Zealand. In 2001, he got a staph infection. He was hospitalized for 12 weeks. He healed up. And then he says, well, it's time for me to pack up and spend some time with my kids and grandkids.
All right.
He headed back down under to little old New Zealand.
Now I just feel like an asshole because I was just trying to be silly and be like, hey, where's Butch? You know, you guys are a tag team, you're right here. And then he comes out with he had a staph infection and get into a more serious story of moving back home and stuff and whatnot. And then I was like, go. Now I just feel like a jerk. But once again, this is the show of the more you know. I guess we're finding out more about things that we may not have known today with some of the past superstars, right?
Yeah, and you know what? I think that what's really surprising is with you know, the advent of the WWE Encyclopedia and all that stuff, you're seeing a lot of people in the area going to do shows now that maybe you wouldn't necessarily have seen. And I think that that's such a thing, because if you're getting an entry signed or whatever and say it's the Bushwhacker entry, you want not just a lone whacker to sign your book. So, you know, I think that's a great question to find out where he is, and it sucks that he had a staph infection and kind of basically just retired. But, you know, if he's doing good, then more power to him.
Yeah, maybe hopefully one day we'll see him back doing some shows together. But, like, I've always saw Butch, you know, at different shows, autograph signings and whatnot alone. And I was like, did the other one die? You know, I'm like, does he just not want to do it? I mean, I always had those questions. I just never Googled why he did it. You think in this day and age we could just go on a laptop and search where he is, but I figured I went to the source and asked him about it, so it makes it even better, I guess. But anyway, I mean, I also asked him, you know, if the current product, the current wrestling business that it is today, if he has any favorite tag team out going right now.
Very rarely watch it. When someone calls me up and says some of my friends are on, or there's a new character, like Rotundo's son when he came up, you know, I started watching that. That's that Wyatt character. And of course, Brian Danielson is an old friend of mine, 12 years, 10 years, and Cesario. You know, whatever his name is now on WWF. I've known those guys for 12 years. So when they're on, someone calls me and tells me, and I watch it, you know.
Cesario, who would have thought that he was a fan of Cesario? No, it was a fun conversation because he was totally in Bushwhacker Luke gimmick. You know what I mean? So it was kind of fun talking to him, and I appreciate his time with us. But I mean, hey, you know, it's interesting to know what legends or what these guys are watching today, if they even watch. And I kind of want to throw that question out to a lot of these guys, just curious, because I don't know, if I was an old wrestler, I think I'd still be watching today, but then again, who knows? I'm not a wrestler, so I don't even know. So just one of those things, I guess, right?
Yeah, it's cool to find out though what they're doing, because a lot of the time you see that, you know, maybe they've turned to God, like kind of Shelly Martinez is talking about. You have a lot of them that maybe are in the service now with like $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Some of them are comedians. You've got Mick Foley that tells jokes, and then some of them have to get real jobs. But for the most part, I think a lot of them are still trying to live out their days as a wrestler. And so, yeah, it's interesting to see. I would just assume that they're all going to watch the product, but to hear him say that he watches it, you know, every now and then, it's still nice to hear. And he's fans of Cesaro and Bryan and Bray Wyatt, so I think he's got good taste.
Yeah, definitely. And it sure is interesting finding out all these little tidbits. And I wish I could have talked longer to these guys, but maybe next time, I'll just keep saying. But moving right along, Jonathan, we met up with none other than John Cena Senior. The elder, you know.
Well, that was my. That wasn't the real music, by the way. That was coming straight from me. So
I did not know that. That's
once we get a better, maybe some more followers and stuff like that,
we'll have a budget for sound effects and
we'll
music.
have a sound effect budget. So until then, you have to listen to me say, you know, so enjoy.
John Cena Sr., shall we call you Mr. Cena or the Fabulous One?
Fabulous One, John Cena Sr. or John is fine with me. Mr. doesn't go.
There you go. Another great person. I can't stress, all these guys are great to me, giving me the time to talk with them. So I talked with John Cena Sr., you know, and I asked him, I said, you are the father of arguably the greatest WWE superstar of all time. Kissing a little butt, you know what I'm saying? But what people may not know is that you yourself are involved in the world of pro wrestling today. And what is his favorite part about being involved with the business that he loves so much?
My favorite part of being in this business is first the fans, and second, the humbling, I guess, that I have being allowed to work, and I mean really being allowed to work with the young men and women in this business who've allowed me to share a part of their lives doing what they do best, and that's entertaining the fans.
All right, yeah. I have you been to any shows where John Cena Sr. was working? I mean, I've seen him at a lot of independent shows around here in the area. I think at BTW. I've seen him at a few other shows, and I mean, he comes out and manages some people, manages some guys. He's a fun experience, you know, Mr. Cena. Oh, I can't call him that, but you know what I mean. It is curious to find out, you know, about the father of John Cena, what he's doing.
I just think that for those of you who aren't from the Northeast like me, we should probably get some subtitles, because I was unfamiliar with the words like pot and Boston and things like that. So, you know, just maybe we can somehow get closed captioning or something for Mr. Cena or John Cena Sr. Sorry, sir. But yeah, like you said, we've seen him quite a few places. One time I was at Mohegan Sun and I was at a SmackDown taping and he was there. And John wasn't even on the show. His son wasn't even there. So he was just at a local WWE show as their guest. And, you can tell that he really enjoys it. So I'm not shocked to hear that, he's part of pro wrestling now. And anytime you hear a documentary about John Cena, they always watch wrestling in that family. So, I would much rather somebody be a part of professional wrestling that's a fan that as opposed to somebody who is just the casual person who walked past a gym and said, hey, I'm going to be a wrestler now. So congrats, John Cena Sr.
Yeah, definitely. And so I figured I'd ask him, if there's anybody currently in the world of professional wrestling that are some of his favorite superstars and divas, or maybe in the past, who is his favorite superstar?
Well, in past, I can only tell you this, that my hero, and I had a chance to chat with him down at WrestleMania, the great one and only Bruno Sammartino. He's passed on now. Chief Jay Strongbow, Gorilla Monsoon, another one who's passed on. I had the opportunity to work with Captain Lou Albano, another great guy. And the Grand Wizard, gone. Current stars, I really like Bray Wyatt. I think, Roman Reigns. You've got Seth Rollins. There are a lot of wonderful young men out there. Women, Natalia, Alicia Fox. You've got some great talent. Paige, just an honor to be part of this.
There you go. A big Bruno Sammartino fan, of course, as pretty much all the older guys are. I mean, everybody loves Bruno Sammartino. How could you not? And also a big Alicia Fox fan. Who would have thought?
Yeah, I mean, I just can't believe how many people are giving love to, I would say, Bray Wyatt, but I mean Alicia Fox. So that's very interesting that there's a lot of Alicia Fox fans out there.
Yes, and I asked him this little cheap plug question of, he looks great these days. He actually lost a lot of weight. I asked him, what does he do to keep himself in shape? And this is what he had to say.
Well, the first secret is change time. The Change Time 10-week challenge. I've done 55 pounds so far, 20 more to go. I couldn't walk before. I couldn't walk about in my driveway. I now walk 3 miles a day. I couldn't do one push-up. I do 25 now when I eat right. So change time, stay healthy, be well, be happy.
Well, there you go. Changetime.com. I mean, I guess being the father of arguably, one of the most fit champions of all time, you kind of have to step it up a notch, I guess, and get in shape yourself a little bit. But, I mean, regardless, good for him losing the weight. Good for him taking care of himself. Great thing. I guess, guys, check that site out. Maybe you can do the Change Time Challenge. And no, they aren't a sponsor yet, But, Jonathan, we've seen him several times on television. He's always on the bad end of things, either Edge slapping him or Orton punting him in the head. I did ask him, though, if he had a dream WWE scenario that he could be a part of and what it would be.
That's a good question. It seems you're right. I'm always on the other end, and the comment was made last night. Of course, I was at Raw, and the doctor made the comment, it's glad to see you, but at least you're walking out this time. I suppose if there was one scenario I'd like to see, might be a tag match between Randy Orton, Cowboy Bob Orton, John Cena, and John Cena Sr. And I just want to knock Orton out. Never happened, I know, but that would be kind of fun.
Wow. Well, who'd have thought? Do you think we'll ever see that tag team match, Jonathan?
They say never in the world of professional wrestling. And, that right there, just that question was a great question, but that question shows you how passionate he is about the business. That makes me think that whenever he shows up, they're like, okay, Mr. Cena, you're going to get kicked in the head tonight. And he's like, oh, okay, that's great, because he just wants to be a part of the show. So,
yeah.
Good job for him. I really appreciate his work, and I hope that he gets to get his wish someday and get to beat on Orton a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what I love about this guy is that, it's when wrestlers or managers or any talent shows up, they have an 8x10 or they have a T-shirt. John Cena Sr. knows how to market himself, I'll tell you that, man. He's got his own line of soda, his own line of cigars. He's got I'll let him tell you what he has, and it's great. You guys should definitely buy some of these Fabo products.
Yes, I have cigars that are hand rolled for me. I have now chocolate cigars for the youngsters, the soda pop. We've got some photos. We have the fabulous $1 Million Bill, and we've got T-shirts on the way. You can find all these products online at johnnyfabulouscena.com.
Man, we need our own line of stuff too. We got to get some merch out there. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we should probably make some some beer and then some root beer for the kids, maybe.
Well, wait, I got it, Jonathan, right here. How about, wait for it, this is going to be good. It's not what anybody else is doing. We have our own, or you can call it another wrestling T-shirt. I'm saying it right there. That's it. I'm just going to drop those words out there and right there. Hey, who wouldn't want to own another wrestling T-shirt?
I've got so many, but I could always use another wrestling T-shirt. So, yeah, I mean, look for that to be out soon, maybe.
Hey, look at this. We're learning how to market from John Cena Sr. And also, the question of all questions, Jonathan, I asked Cena Sr., when the crowd chants, "Let's go Cena, Cena sucks," how does that make him feel as a father?
Good, because you know what? In this business, you understand one thing. No reaction is a bad reaction. So cheer me or boo me, at least I know you're there.
Well, hey, I mean, that's probably the greatest answer you can have. I mean, that's the answer that every person wants. I mean, you want a reaction. Bad, good, whatever, it's a reaction, and they're getting it. And I think that's what a lot of the things that people forget about is that, oh, they're booing Cena, they need to make him a heel. It doesn't matter. You know what I mean? He still sells the most stuff. He's still the most profitable. He doesn't have to be a heel. He's still getting a reaction from you marks out there. So it's perfect for him. Whether we love him or hate him, he's in a great spot right now. But I've always wanted to ask that question anyway. So, short and sweet.
Yeah, and he seems very, very aware of the situation that his son is making millions and millions of dollars, and that he just wants to be part of the business. So it was great talking to John Cena Sr., and hopefully we can get him on for a longer interview sometime.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks a lot for Mr. Oh, I can't call him Mr., but John Cena Sr. Thanks for joining us. But moving right along, Jonathan, I'm just going to keep saying that because I don't really have any other transitional words in my repertoire right now.
Arriba!
There you go. Arriba is the next transition to Tito Santana. Now, man, I'll tell you what. Tito Santana, I was a big Tito Santana fan growing up. I mean, one of my first figures, remember those big, giant rubber figures? Tito Santana was my first one. I think my brother had the Ricky Steamboat one, but I remember I had Tito Santana, and I mean, he had such a great following. I asked him about a few basic generic questions about his, history, but most importantly, I asked him, does he watch the current product, and his thoughts on that.
Well, I really don't watch wrestling, nowadays. It's a different ball game. This is we used to be a wrestling organization, and even Vince, talks about he's a TV product now. So, it's completely different.
And right there and then is an example of a legend who just doesn't watch what's going on today. I mean, I'm not saying he has to, but I'm just trying to get the feel of the landscape out there of who's watching what, who's doing what. It's always curious to see what's going on with in the past,
Well, he is keeping pretty busy. I'm pretty sure that most people know, or they should know, that he actually has his own hair salon in New Jersey. And I know,
really?
I know what you're thinking. With hair like that, that's exactly what he should be doing. And there is a rumor that he has like a taco place in Beacon, New York. I'm not 100% about that because I've heard. I mean, I know it's called the Tito Santana Taqueria, but I don't know if he's actually the one that owns it or not. So fact checkers, get on that.
Either way, I think we should make a trip down there and do a live show from Tito Santana's Taqueria.
I think that sounds amazing.
I hope you don't eat enough tacos. You probably will get some taqueria. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, that
was a bad joke. I don't know. I tried something. It was something. But anyway, I asked him, if there's one thing, that he wish he could have accomplished in his career, what would it have been?
I just wish that I had a chance of experiencing being the world champion, because I believe I had a great following, and I believe I could have carried the load, and I just didn't experience that because that was the ultimate.
I honestly thought he had a big following back in the 80s, but I guess it's just one of those things that, not everybody can be the champion, right?
No, they cannot. If my favorite Ravishing Rick Rude was not the WWF champion at any point in his career, then Tito Santana should not be the champion either.
Well, hey, what can I say? But hey, another fine question that maybe nobody has asked Tito Santana to this day yet, and if they have, I don't know. I'm just saying, I got the question. We're the first on the spot with it, but Los Matadores, I hate them more than I could even express right now. But I asked him, what does he think of, WWE using kind of his gimmick of the Matador? But, it's not the same thing in a way, but you know what I mean. So I asked him what his thoughts are on Los Matadores.
Yeah, I've heard. I've never seen them. I've heard, that there's a tag team called Los Matadores or whatever, but I haven't watched them.
Well, there you go. The Matador doesn't even care or know about Los Matadores.
So I find that a little strange that maybe he hasn't seen the Los Matadores, and I definitely think he should be. What it is I think that there's not as many Hispanic wrestlers as there are other types of wrestlers, and that I think he could be there to kind of help out some of those, wrestlers. I should say Hispanic wrestlers in America, I should say. But I think it would be interesting if he came back and gave back to WWE a little bit, because I think he does have a mind for the business.
Yeah, definitely, and it's always interesting. You never know these questions unless you ask them. But another question that I didn't know was, who was his toughest opponent ever?
The toughest matches I ever had, and we had the longest feud in the history of the WWF back then, was Greg the Hammer Valentine. I mean, we used to. I guess the reason that we drew, was because we used to beat the hell out of each other, in the ring. Great matches, but I enjoyed working with him.
Yeah, a lot of great and classic Tito Santana and Greg the Hammer Valentine matches. I wish I got a chance to speak to Greg, but I was kind of preoccupied with some other interviews that day. But interesting nonetheless. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that Greg the Hammer Valentine goes on a lot of people's lists as just one bad mamma jamma. So he's all you have to do is watch the dog collar match between him and Piper, and it'll change your view on Greg the Hammer.
There you go. I think that guy's hair will never change, by the way, too. I think he could be like 98, and he'll still have that blonde, mullet-esque hair, perfect shape, and I think that's his gimmick nowadays. So
I'm going to tell you right now, and this is a little-known fact, but my high school principal, Miss Leanne Kelly, is a spitting image for Greg the Hammer Valentine. So, Miss Kelly, if you are listening right now, just know that I think about you every time I see Greg the Hammer Valentine.
Well, hey, now we know. We'll have to definitely look that up and fact check it, because I'm going to have to see this myself. But also, none other than the Hurricane, Shane Helms, was in the house, Jonathan, and I had a chance to ask him a few funny questions, but another serious question. But the first thing I got to ask him was, if he had to face any superhero today in the ring, who would it be?
Superhero, the Black Widow.
Black Widow?
Yeah, I'll put her over strong with her finish.
I don't know what her finish is, but I'm sure this is some sexual innuendo. I don't know.
I was really expecting maybe, I know he's a big Green Lantern mark, so I was expecting that, but Black Widow, I guess.
Hey, I mean, I guess the Hurricane has something for the Black Widow, but hey, if you don't ask, you're never gonna know, right?
Exactly.
But anyway, I wanted to ask a serious question too. With all these other questions I asked them, I'm a big fan of belts, championships. I'm a big cruiserweight champion, believe it or not, Jonathan. But I asked him, being a past cruiserweight champion for WCW and WWE, how do you feel about the championship missing in today's era? Do you think it'll ever make a comeback? And this is what he had to say.
Probably not, because some of the heavyweights are a lot smaller now. It just seems like overall some of the guys are smaller. If some of the big super heavyweights, if that starts picking back up, then I would like to see it. You know, it kind of lost its identity when cruiserweights were fighting heavyweights all the time. That's when you lose, because that doesn't happen in boxing or MMA. You don't just have a middleweight go up and fight the super heavyweight, you know. So if you get a lot more of the talented bigger guys, and they can just stick to their division and the cruiserweights stick to their division, then it works. When you mix it together, it loses its focus.
Now, what are your thoughts about this, Jonathan? Because, I mean, the last WWE light heavyweight champion or cruiserweight champion was Hornswoggle. You know, I mean, but he does make a point to where, you know, anything else you watch, you know, MMA or boxing or anything, you don't have a heavyweight fighting a cruiserweight or a welterweight or whatever you want to call him. I mean, do you think this would ever make a comeback personally yourself?
I personally don't know what they're thinking of, but I'm pretty sure that it would go over pretty well. The X division in TNA has done pretty well, and you know, I think that's where WWE sometimes gets in trouble, because you have people like Evan Bourne, who they just released, and other Kurt Hawkins, for example. These are people who are smaller in scale but can do a lot more in the ring versus people like John Cena, Randy Orton. And that's not to say that they don't do well in the ring. It's just to say that they aren't jumping off the top rope, doing flips or anything like that. So I think the WWE would do well to have a lighter weight division and to stick with it for a while and just see who they can get. I've always been a huge fan of Austin Aries, and I would love to see Austin Aries in some sort of role like that in the WWE.
Yeah, I think with today's guys, too, I mean, like he said, too, that they're mixing them up too much, that you kind of lose that division. But, I mean, you know, you have a lot of these guys that just aren't big, and honestly, you know, they could break up, you know, the divisions with the light heavyweight championship or cruiserweight, whatever you want to call it, and stick with those guys, like the X division is doing, and it just adds more depth to what you got going instead of everybody's fighting for the WWE championship or whatnot. You know what I mean? But anyway, I was kind of curious what a former cruiserweight champion had to say about that. So it's always interesting just to hear some feedback from wrestlers as well. But like you said, he is a big Green Lantern mark. And I asked him, was he as disappointed with the Green Lantern movie as I was?
Probably more so.
So, I mean, a little short, quick answer, but he didn't really go too much into it. But another interesting question I wanted to ask him, the final one for him is, given the opportunity to return to the WWE, who would he see himself facing? And he had a pretty good answer.
Right now, probably the best one would be Bray Wyatt. He hates heroes. I am the hero, so I think that would be very interesting. He's definitely one of my favorite gimmicks going right now. He's actually is my favorite gimmick going right now on TV is the Wyatt family, so I would love to go in there and do something with those guys.
Well, there you go. Another Wyatt fan mark, I guess you could say. But would you see a good program between the Hurricane Shane Helms and Bray Wyatt?
Nothing against Hurricane. I think he's a great wrestler, but I don't know how that would go over very well at all. I mean, that's the thing is Bray Wyatt is he is a character. He's like a gimmick, but he's like an actual. You could find people like that in the world. Or cult, like the Hurricane is just he's a real life superhero. So I don't necessarily think that. And I think that that's part of the problem. I really liked Hurricane when he was just Gregory Helms. Mm-hmm. And I think that maybe Gregory Helms and Bray Wyatt could have a good program. But so for those of you who don't know, I say it 1,000 times, but I am from the Midwest, and I feel like that everybody comes up to me and says that I have an accent. When you listen to Hurricane Helms, he has an accent, and I'm pretty sure he's from North Carolina. So but it's always nice to hear somebody with an accent, and I've always heard that Vince McMahon does not like people with accents. So it's a very interesting thing.
Any thoughts on Matt Striker, Jonathan?
Yeah, I am a huge Matt Striker fan. I was kind of saddened whenever he left WWE. I understand the reasoning behind it, to cut costs or whatever they decided to do, but he was one of those people that whenever I watch wrestling, I like people to think that wrestling isn't just some redneck hillbilly sport, and I really like to be I like to learn new things. And Stryker was one of those people that would give you information. He wasn't just like talking and saying, "Oh, he got punched," and "Oh, he got kicked." He would say things like, "Oh, the last time that this championship was, defended in this state was this time, or the last time that it was defended in this building, this person had it." So I really enjoyed his style of commentating, and I tell you, just as far as everything that he did in wrestling, I really enjoyed it. But we get to see him a lot now in, other promotions such as House of Hardcore. He's been on, I'm pretty sure, FWE a few times, and it's good just to keep him in the area because I think he's got a great mind for the business, and I hope he just sticks with it.
Yeah, and I mean, he's great on commentary. He's a great wrestler, but he's great on commentary too. And like you said, we don't get those little factoids anymore. I mean, JR was another guy who just threw out some facts here and there. But I mean, Stryker was a great personality and a great person to have around, and it's a shame that they lost him or got rid of him for who? I don't know who, but I mean, it was a shock. So that's what I pretty much asked them to start off with, that, it was almost a year to the day. I think it was a year to the day that I asked him on June 20th. In 2013, he parted ways with WWE. Since then, though, he's been traveling all over, continuing to wrestle and commentate. But my question to him was there ever any doubt that you wouldn't continue entertaining after you left the WWE?
The choice wasn't mine. This is in my blood, and I have an opportunity now to go to some of these smaller towns or some of these places that I didn't have a chance to go to with WWE and actually meet the fans and interact with them, because that was always the most important thing. I'm real fortunate that in the next couple of weeks I'm going to be heading to Japan for Pro Wrestling Noah for the first time in my career, and I actually get to sit with some of the most passionate and intelligent wrestling fans in the entire world, the Japanese wrestling fans. I've been to England, some of the greatest fans, Germany, so on and so forth, Mexico. So, no, I don't think there was a doubt.
So, yeah, a basic question, but I wasn't trying to say, was it his, his idea to leave. Obviously, I know they let people go and stuff, and I think it was a stupid part on WWE's for letting this guy go. For, like you said, he adds more to the product of knowledge and, just getting those little factoids out to everybody that not a lot of guys do. And, it's interesting to hear, his perspective on stuff. But I had to throw in a little funny question that you, Jonathan, gave to me. A little lightning round question, we called it, because it was just a little fast few questions, but with one answer. For anybody out there who doesn't know, Matt Stryker was also a child actor when one of these movies came out. And I'll guess you guys can guess which movie it was. So my question to him was, which movie is better? The Marine 2, The Marine 3 Homefront, or the critically acclaimed 1986 film Wise Guys?
That's funny. That's good. Flash Gordon.
I'll tell you what, even to try to get him laugh, he laughed for that one little second. I thought I broke Matt Stryker, but right there and then, he throws it in my face, Flash Gordon, one of his favorite movies. So, I don't know. I thought it was funny. I can't keep a serious face when I was asking that, but it was still comical to hear.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to. He's not one of those people that takes himself too seriously, and I think that's a good quality for anybody who's in the public eye. So,
yeah, he's great talking to him. I hope we can get him on the show one day to talk to him a little bit more. But like I said, we only had a certain amount of time with all these guys, so I just had a handful of questions to ask each and every one of them. Another basic question I asked the Matt Stryker was, as far as the world of pro wrestling goes, as far as the world of pro wrestling is concerned, he's done just about everything. He was a manager, a wrestler, a commentator, a multi-time champion. I asked him, what did he see as his crowning achievement?
It's going to sound so gross, but when a kid comes up to me and says that they met me X amount of years ago and I actually stopped to talk to them or I signed their autograph, and that inspired them to try to be cool to people because so many wrestlers they meet turn out to not be so cool. That, to me, is what's important. The legacy I leave is, what are people going to remember? I can't take any of the money with me, and I can't take my boots or my titles or any of that, but what stays behind is how I made people feel. So hopefully that'll be a good thing.
Once again, it just shows you, though, that he's been on he's wrestled at WrestleMania, he's commentated at WrestleMania. And none of that really seems to matter to him. It's the fact that he wants to interact with people. He wants to entertain people. And, I think that is somewhat of the passion that some people are lacking in today's world of professional wrestling, sports entertainment.
Yeah, and speaking of, he one of the stories that we know about him go back a few years ago, a long time ago, where he left teaching at Benjamin N. Cardoza High School to pursue a career in wrestling, and it was a big story in the city. I asked him, do you think that current wrestlers in training have that sort of drive, that dedication, that passion to do what he did, and basically, leave behind your career to go into the world of pro wrestling? This is what he had to say.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think the evolution of humanity lends itself to that, and I'm not one of these people that says, in my day, it was... No, I think everyone deserves a chance, and if someone's packing boxes in the back of a Wallbaum's and dreaming of being a wrestler, go for it. The same way someone could be, up in Wall Street wearing a suit and making $150,000 a year, but desperately wants to be a hip-hop artist. Go for it, man.
Man, he has to be a motivational speaker, I'm telling you. He's got that soft voice, that that trusting voice that you just you listen to him, you know what I mean? He's not no matter what he tells you, you kind of take that advice and go with it, you know what I mean? He's a great person to listen to.
Yeah, I think that he should definitely do some sort of speech, whether it be at high schools or for pro wrestlers or whatever, but he's just one of those people that you can listen to for hours and hours.
Yeah, definitely. And, like you said earlier before, we worked with him at House of Hardcore, and he was sitting right next to us commentating, and we almost kind of, we were in control of the media for the show, but as we look to our left, we have Matt Stryker calling commentary right next to us, and it's kind of like we just wanted to listen to him and watch him because he made the show so much more enjoyable, you know what I mean, to where just listening to him added to the show. Like, these announcers, these ringside, these play-by-play guys are a big element to your shows, especially if you're having on TV or DVD. You need these call guys. You know what I mean? They add to the show, and like I said, we were just wanted to listening to him the whole show, kind of. I didn't know where I was going with that, but
no, that's fine. That's fine.
But like I said, we recently worked with him at Tommy Dreamer's House of Hardcore, and him and Tommy were both trained by Johnny Rods, and I asked him, has he ever considered becoming a trainer himself?
I currently help out. A lot of my friends have wrestling schools, and where I am in New York, within a 20-mile radius, we have Tommy Dreamer's House of Hardcore, Mikey Whipwreck's NYWC, Kurt Hawkins Creative Pro, Brian Excel in the Amazing Reds House of Glory, Joel Maximo's Lotus. You have Earl Cooter has FTW. Out in I think Rahway, New Jersey, you have Kevin Matthews and Pat Buck have Pro Wrestling Syndicate. There's so many wrestling schools out there. I try to help out with as many of those as I can. I just think teaching is in me, and to watch someone learn how to do something they've always wanted to do is so rewarding. So yeah, absolutely, I'll continue to teach for as long as people want to learn.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting fact right there for all you marks listening to us in the Northeast, of just how many wrestling schools or wrestling, things are around us. And I kind of wish that this was back in the day with the territory system, to where I kind of wish these guys were a little bit bigger than what they are now. We go to all these shows. We go to the Northeast Wrestling shows, House of Hardcore, FWE, you name it, we're there, and it's great to be in the Northeast as a pro wrestling fan with all these great experiences because I never knew it. I never knew out of the plethora of all these things that are miles away from us, 20-mile radius, he said,
Yeah, and I did learn just during that interview that he just drops a lot of names. He's just a big name dropper.
Hey man, that's what we got to do for this show, because when we tweet out this show, we're gonna be like, we talked to Matt Stryker, Tito Santana. We got to name drop it. That's how the game's played, Jonathan. We got to name drop.
Drop it like it's hot.
Boom. Hey, I also had one more last question for him though. I asked him, if he could dream call any match or just have any dream match itself, what would it be?
I get asked this question often. I've had the honor of calling matches with Jim Ross, Joey Styles, and William Regal. And those are my three favorite guys because I don't have to worry about anything. They're going to do their job, and they'll allow me to just plug in the gaps. As far as a dream match to call, I was real honored to be able to call Shawn Michaels and Undertaker at WrestleMania. I would have liked to have done maybe a Ric Flair, Ricky Steamboat 60-minute match, but I came with the same passion when it was JTG versus Trent Beretta that I did when it was Shawn versus Taker. So any match is obviously the match that I'm focused on. I'm real fortunate I got to wrestle guys like Kurt Angle, like The Undertaker, like Triple H, like John Cena. I've teamed with William Regal. But some of the great guys that I don't think get the heralding that they deserve, Brad Armstrong, Adrian Adonis, some of these guys, Mike Rotundo, some of these guys you don't realize how good they were until you talk to someone that knows how good they were.
I just want to say thanks again to everybody that we talked to that weekend for the New England Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame, the FanFest 4. It was a great experience. I mean, I learned a lot of stuff, Jonathan. What about you?
Absolutely. I knew most of it, Credo. I'm just going to be honest with you. But, yeah, there was probably one thing or maybe two that I learned.
Well, there you go. You got to sell it more, Jonathan. You got to sell it to the crowd like, wow, I learned a lot today.
Wow, I learned a lot today.
There you go, and I'm going to leave it in just like that. But anyway, guys, we're going to be doing stuff like this each and every week. These past 2 shows were a little bit of a special because we had this experience to go down there and speak to more superstars than just one. But Jonathan, can you give us a little teaser for what's going to happen on episode 4?
Yeah, episode 4 was very special for me because as a huge fan of professional wrestling, I'm also a collector of all things professional wrestling. And 2009, the professional wrestling, the WWE Encyclopedia came out, and that was written by New York Times best-selling author Brian Shields and help from Kevin Sullivan, not that Kevin Sullivan, which you'll find out about in the interview. So I actually had a chance to speak with Brian Shields in depth about the encyclopedia, his new book coming out soon, which is the 30 Years of WrestleMania, which you can pre-order now at any of the places that you would pre-order a book. And but yeah, you should tune in next week as we talk to him, and you'll get to learn a lot. Actually, it's a great episode.
Awesome. Yeah, Jonathan, I can't wait. And like I said, we're going to be doing a lot of these shows. We're going to have a lot of guests. So like I said, these past 2 shows are special because we had more than one guest. But next week, like you said, Brian Shields will be joining us. And we're also going to talk some topics, Jonathan. Like I said in the first episode, we want to talk more about topical things. We don't want to really tell you what you just saw on Raw or Impact or whatever. We kind of want to dive deeper into the world of pro wrestling and, get some more thoughts on what we have to think about certain subjects. So we'll also be doing that. And this week's sponsor for today's show is Collector's Realm. You can visit them at collectorsrealm.net and visit their social media pages at facebook.com/collectorsrealm and twitter.com/collectorsrealm. And if any of you guys listening out there want to be a sponsor on our show, you could email us at anotherwrestlingpodcast@gmail.com, because this Sunday, Jonathan, we are going to be at the Collector's Realm down at the Duchess Marketplace in Fishkill, New York, speaking with none other than Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Ho!
And maybe that we can kind of preview that will be episode 5. We'll have Hacksaw as our guest on episode 5, guys. So just kind of explaining what's going to be happening on our show into the future and whatnot. But Jonathan, once again, if people are searching for us, where can they find us?
Well, you can like us on Facebook if you have the Book of Faces at facebook.com/anotherwrestlingpodcast. If you are a Twitter fanatic, you can like us and follow us on Twitter at @awrestlingpod. Subscribe to us on iTunes. We're also on Stitcher and Podbean. I was just informed earlier. See, I did learn something today, Credo.
Well, see, that's basically where our show gets sent out to the world. Basically, we're on Podbean hosting our web show, our podcast, and it gets sent out to iTunes and everybody else in the world. So, whatever you guys want to go on, we're going to be everywhere in the social media verse. So, and Jonathan, man, I think that's it. We did another show. That's an accomplishment, I guess. That's one for the books, right?
That is number 3 in the can.
In the can, as they say, guys. But each and every week, please tune in for
Another Wrestling Podcast.